And if I had to describe my beauty routine, it would be minimal and fumbling. Good morning everyone, my name is Athena and welcome to my channel. Now since I am new to the AuthorTube community, I thought today I would do the AuthorTube Newbie Tag. Found this on Jenna the Dark One's channel. The links to the original tag will be in the box. But I'm also getting ready to head out for the day, so I thought I would combine those two and do the AuthorTube Newbie Tag and also just a very laid back, relaxed, get ready with me, chit chat about creativity and writing. So thank you for stopping by and I hope you enjoy. Alright, I'm gonna get started here, and I am not a beauty guru by any stretch of the imagination. I am just gonna start with the Bare Minerals Original Powder Foundation, and this is in Golden Ivory. And I've been using Bare Minerals for years and years. I have very sensitive skin, and for someone like me who only uses very minimal makeup, this works out really well. Always fun to put on makeup and try to read tiny font on your phone without your glasses. The first question is, how did you find out about AuthorTube? I found out about AuthorTube in a very roundabout way. Many people found it through BookTube. I'm not mixing a cocktail off camera here, I'm just doing the swirl and tap with the Bare Minerals brush. I am not active in the BookTube community. I don't watch or give book reviews. However, I do watch a lot of TeacherTube videos. Now, I'm not a teacher, I don't work in the school system, and I don't work with children. I just find them enjoyable to watch. Something really soothing about watching people, I don't know, sort and label things maybe? But I was watching some TeacherTube videos, and it got me to thinking, like, there's TeacherTube, there's beauty and gaming and BookTube. I bet there is a community of authors and writers on YouTube as well. So I literally just typed into the search box AuthorTube and it popped right up. So that's how I found AuthorTube, in a very roundabout way. Like I said, I'm not a makeup expert or even an intermediate in any sense of the word. Basically, you just take stuff and like smush it onto various parts of your face, and then you look different, and then that's makeup, right? Okay, the next question is, what genres do you write in? I am a speculative fiction or spec fic author. And spec fic is just an umbrella term for genres where there are elements of things that are made up. So it encompasses fantasy, it encompasses sci-fi, and all the subgenres that belong to those genre categories. So I have written in fantasy, I've written horror, paranormal, sci-fi, futuristic sci-fi, anything where I can make up elements of it, I've written in those. And over the years, I have also become more focused in romance, so I would consider myself a speculative fiction romance author. You know, the great thing about using mineral makeup is that when you travel with it, you don't have to put it into your liquids bag. Because I'm always worried about, well, does this count as a liquid? It says it's a gel. I mean, do you guys put your mascara in your liquids bag? You're probably supposed to, right? Because it's a liquid. Okay, the next question is, what is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? And she lists category of story as children's, YA, new adult, adult, etc. For writing tense, I prefer past tense, even when I'm writing in first person. And that kind of leads into the next part, which point of view do you write in? I've written in both first person and third person limited. As for category of story, I have written young adult, new adult, and adult. Now I'm going to go in with some primer, and I'm using the Revlon Photo Ready, and also some under eye concealer. This is the Maybelline Eraser Dark Circles Treatment Concealer. Okay, and question number 4 is, are you a plotter, pantser, or plancer? And that has to do with how much you prep and outline and pre-write before you start drafting. And I've heard George R.R. Martin refer to this as being an architect or a gardener, which I think is a very romantic way to put it. Like, he considers himself a gardener. He grooms the story and the characters, but he lets them do whatever they want to do. Now, on Writing Excuses, the podcast, if you want a podcast by writers for writers, that's a great one to check out. And on the podcast, they often talk about outlining versus discovery writing. And I like that concept because it creates more of a spectrum, and you can lie anywhere on that spectrum. And depending on your work that you're working on, you might find yourself sliding more in one direction than the other. Now, I used to be a heavy outliner, you guys, down to teeny tiny details. I would block out places for dialogue. I would have every scene micromanaged. And I have just this year mindfully and purposefully cut back on the amount that I outline. And the reason for that is, for me, an outline should really be to guide and help steer the story so that in the moment I'm not fumbling for what to write next. But for me, the outline really became a source of anxiety and stress. And I struggle a lot with perfectionism. And I know perfectionism is sometimes romanticized, but in my case, it was just paralyzing. If what I was drafting wasn't lining up with my outline, I would get very stressed about it and think that I needed to scrap the entire thing. So I have mindfully and purposefully cut back on the amount that I outline. And it's definitely still something I struggle with today. If you guys want to talk about perfectionism and more about outlining, leave me a comment down below. One thing I did with this NaNoWriMo is I purposefully only gave myself a week to do prep. A lot of people spend the entire month prepping, doing outlining and character development and research. But because I struggle so much with perfectionism, I purposefully shortened the amount of time for my writing preparations. Going back to the question, I guess my answer is a plantser, or maybe a recovering plotter. Okay, now I'm going to go in with the Bare Minerals Mineral Veil Setting Powder. And the next question is number 5, are you self-published, published, or yet to be published? I would consider myself to be in an aggressively pursuing publication phase. And what I mean by that is I am regularly, and in my case that's about once every 8 months, producing a new manuscript, submitting it to agents, attending writing classes, attending conferences and webinars, and pursuing traditional publication while also honing my craft and working on improving my writing skills. And number 6 asks, what publishing company, literary agent, and or printing company are you represented by or use? If you're not yet published, what is your dream publishing house and or literary agent? Now, I am very lucky in that my most recent manuscript on submission gathered quite a few full manuscript requests, and although they've all ultimately passed, it gave me a lot of insight into what I hope my future literary agent will be like. And for me, it's going to be about building a relationship. I really want an agent who sees my potential as a writer, who works to build my career with me, who pushes me when I need pushing. And I'm someone who needs a lot of pushing. So I want someone who appreciates what I can bring to the table as a writer. And I like to add a little bit of extra powder over my eyes just to set the product, and because I have very oily skin in that area, so this helps the mascara not bleed all over the place. So now I'm going to do some contouring. I'm using the Benefit Hoola Light. The next question, number 7, is what AuthorTube related videos can we expect to find on your channel? What really interests me most as a writer connecting with other members in the writing community is talking about the creative process and how we overcome our weaknesses and difficulties in writing. Conversations just about creativity and what are the parts that I find difficult? Do other people find those parts difficult too? And how do we overcome those parts? Like I mentioned, perfectionism. That's something I'd like to explore more. Like, I'm sure there are a lot of people who also deal with it. And we can have conversations about that where we not only commiserate, but actively brainstorm solutions to help us overcome those weaknesses. I'd also like to give writing updates about how my writing journey is going. Question number 8 is, when did you start writing? And I'm going to kind of combine that with question number 9, which is, what was the first story you ever wrote? My answers for those two questions are very related. So I'm sure I wrote before this, but I have a very distinct memory of when I purposefully sat down and put pen to paper. And it's also tied into how I discovered fantasy books and how I became a speculative fiction writer. Now, I was always a voracious reader as a child. I went through books very quickly. I couldn't get enough books. And I'm very lucky in that my mom, she wouldn't always buy me toys or candy if I wanted them, but if I wanted a book, she would buy that for me. So I was very lucky to have as many books as I wanted, which is good because I was very voracious as a reader. And in elementary school at the time, this is before online ordering or even the internet. And one of the ways that schools would help children find books is they would distribute these paper catalogs to the classroom, and then your teacher would give everyone a copy of the paper catalog. And they were very thin, and the boxes were very small, and you would just circle and mark which books you wanted, and then bring in an actual paper check along with the order form, and then your teacher would mail them in for you. I would always order books that way. When I was perusing one of those catalogs, I was very struck by the cover and description for one of Brian Jake's Redwall books. And it was Salamandastron. So I ordered it and read it, and that book launched my love affair with all things fantasy. That's why sometimes my friends who have children will ask me, like, well, what books do you recommend? And I try to recommend, when I give them a list, I try to make it as varied as possible, like something from everything, because you never know what's going to spark interest in a child and where that's going to lead. So going back to what story I remember writing, and I'm sure I wrote other stuff for school or just for fun, but after I read that Salamandastron book, I remember thinking to myself, well, what happened after the book ended? Like, what did the characters go on and do after that? In the book, there's a big, like, epic battle, and I remember thinking to myself, afterwards, someone's got to clean all that stuff up. There's going to be a big mess everywhere, and things were broken and destroyed. Like, who has to deal with that? So I picked up pencil and paper, and I wrote what one of the characters had to do after the book ended. Now, this was technically fan fiction, but like I said, this is way before the internet and the online community. So it was just me, pencil and paper, just kind of exploring what I thought might have happened to that character after the story. And I remember having so much fun with it because the characters were doing what I wanted them to do and I could control them. So from there, I never really stopped. Okay, number 10 is, what authors have inspired your writing the most? Now, I already mentioned Brian Jake's. It's hard in my mind to separate, well, who do I just like to read a lot versus who do I think has influenced my writing? So that's a tough question, because I can think of a lot of writers who I read and who I admire and maybe pursue their writing advice. But I think I would have to ask my critique partners maybe who they think I write similarly to, or who they think influenced my writing. I will say that as an adult, I was very struck by the writings of Meljean Brooke and Nalini Singh. But I really like Nalini Singh's. She evokes emotion in a way that I really like. And Meljean Brooke, I really like the relationships that her characters have with each other. So I think those are two writers who I try to emulate in those areas when I'm writing. Okay, now going in with some eyeshadow, and today I'm using the Melissa Michelle Ulta Beauty palette, and it's just various shades of nudes. Okay, question number 11. Do you schedule your writing sessions or simply get to writing whenever you can find the time? I think I do some of both. I do have set times of the day where I sit down and write, but I'm also trying to be someone who, if the mood strikes me to write, or if I get a good idea or anything like that, I will let myself explore those. I mentioned before that I struggle with perfectionism, and there have been times in the past where if I was struck by the mood to write, or if I came up with an idea like late at night or in the middle of doing something else, I would hold myself back from exploring those. I would think to myself, no, I need to save it, or if I use that creativity up now, I won't have any for my planned writing session, and that's just not true. The more I allow myself to be creative, the more creativity I have, and the more I trust it to be there when I need it. So now I do actively try to, if I feel like I have an idea I want to brainstorm, just doing it any type of the day. Okay, eyes have stuff on them. Let's move on to eyebrows. And today I'm using the Revlon Color Stay. Okay, and question number 12 is, do you type on a computer, typewriter, write everything out by hand, or use a blend of those? And where do you write in general? Now, I write mostly here in my office that I have at home, and I am very lucky to have a dedicated workspace. Now, as far as hardware goes, I like to brainstorm and outline by hand, and then for the rough draft, I like to get that done as quickly as possible. Like sometimes you hear it referred to as fast drafting, and I find that that works best for me. That way all those insecurities and doubts don't start creeping in, and I don't get burned out on a story. So the faster I can get that done, the better. So I usually type the first draft up either on my laptop, or I do have an Alpha Smart, which those of you in the NaNoWriMo community, I'm sure you've heard of before. So sometimes I'll break that guy out and use him. Eyebrows are one of those beauty points that you can get really stressed about, or at least I do. Just gotta remind myself that they're sisters, not twins. Isn't that something beauty gurus say? And just like sisters, there's always one that's really excited to be at the party, and the other one is just like, ugh, why am I here? I don't want to play beer pong, and also my ex is over there, so I think I'm just gonna go home early. And then she bails. This turned into a short story. Question 13 and the last question on the tag are, what are you most looking forward to now that you're a part of AuthorTube? And I'm going in with the Maybelline Colossal Volume Express mascara. I guess what I'm looking forward to most is really connecting more with the community. I do already watch a lot of AuthorTube videos, and I mentioned earlier that one of the things I'm interested in most is talking about my weak points as a writer, the parts that I find difficult, and connecting with other people who have the same difficulties or have overcome that difficulty themselves. And in that same vein, if there are parts that I do not find difficult, and I can share some of my tactics for people who do find that area challenging, then that's something I want to do too. So it's really about connecting more with the AuthorTube community. Okay. Okay, and just finishing up with this Clinique Almost lipstick in Black Honey. I don't have my glasses on, guys, so if I'm not saying what it actually is, thank you for bearing with me. Oh, you know what? I'm done with my eyes. I could put on my glasses, duh. Let me stop and look crazy for a second because I only have half my lipstick on. Put on my glasses so I can see. Okay, so much better. Do any of you wear glasses and also do makeup? Do you just like squint the entire time? Do you put on contacts just for the makeup putting on part? That's a struggle we could talk about. I really like this color. I usually go for nude. I know you're shocked, but this one's actually not so far off from the natural color of my lips, and it's very fall, kind of a dark red wine color. Okay, now the fun part is putting the lids back on everything, because for some reason the lids like to try to make a break for it. I always end up with like, what was this on? Probably a brow pencil, right? Like, okay. And you can see the final look here. Like I said, very subtle, very inexpertly applied. So, alright guys, that was my AuthorTube Newbie Tag, plus a relaxed getting ready with me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!